Hi, welcome to our Governance.Business session on the absence management functionality. In this session, we will show you how to book and unbook absences, approve absences for the different resources. So let's get started and see how we can book and unbook absences for a certain resource. So we enter with a resource in the solution, for example, Abraham Alvarez. Once we enter in the solution, we can then go to my workspace and we find the absences part here on this link. When we access this page, we can see then all the absences that are currently scheduled or pending approval or on the different other statuses for the different absence types. So on the top, we can see the allowances that we currently have active for 2020, in this case, the year that we are booking absences on. So in this case, we see this absence allowance that has an allowance of 22 days, and we already scheduled 10 out of those 22. We can also see absences per type, for example, 5 absences of type education and then 10 in terms of vacations or the statuses of each of the absences. We can also use the filters on top in order to filter all the information that we see on the calendar based on a certain allowance or certain status or a certain absence type. Okay, so in this case, if we look at our calendar, we can then see the different absences that are already scheduled and in this case approved. So we see absences of type education, for example, or absences of type vacation that are consuming towards the allowance vacations 2020 and are currently approved. So we can see the whole calendar. So let's say that we want to schedule a certain absence, okay, in the calendar. So let's say that we want to schedule, for example, this week of March, okay, in order to schedule vacations on these dates. So once we select our information, our days that we want to schedule or unschedule, we see here the information, or we see a little form where we can select the type of absence that we would like to schedule. Okay, so in this case, the absence types that appear here are the absence types that are configured in the policy associated with this user. So we will select in this case vacations, okay, and out of the vacations and based again on the policy that is associated with this user, we can then see that the scheduling type is full day. It doesn't allow us to schedule any other type of scheduling of periods, so either hours or half days. So there are different ways of scheduling types that we can use. In this case, because of the policy, the scheduling type has to be full day. You can also associate a document in order to submit this document together with the absence days that you want to schedule, and also put in a comment. So vacation days in March, okay, and then schedule or ask for the schedule of those vacations. After scheduling those vacations, we see that these periods are marked as pending approval and the approver is highlighted in the tooltip, and it also contains the comment that we have put in each of these days. Okay, we can also see here on top the different graphics that adapt itself to the number of things that you can see in the calendar currently, or even the consumption in terms of days for the allowance that you have for the vacations. Okay, so let's say that right now these days are submitted for approval. Okay, so you can either wait for them to be approved. You can also say no, but I want to review them because I didn't want really this week. Okay, and because of that, you can also select each of those days and say that you want to remove those days, and then this will unbook these days automatically because they aren't approved yet. So if we would like to do the same for approved days, then we would have to select these ones that are approved. We could select the day that we want to unschedule, okay, and then just press the remove and insert a comment if we want to, okay, and just press remove. This will basically turn these days into pending removal, so it needs to be approved by the vacation approver, in this case because of the absence type vacations, and in this case the approver is Hugo Lucas. Okay, let's say that we have other absence types in the calendar, such as, for example, education, and these ones are marked as auto approval, which means that if I want to unbook these days, I can do so, but just by selecting the days themselves and then press remove, and this will basically remove those days automatically from the absence calendar. Okay, so in that case those days aren't scheduled anymore. So if we want to, for example, just again book those days as education, so we can select the days, we can select then education, and if you see then after that, okay, the information that you see here in the schedule type, it then allows you to select half day or full day based on the policy that is applied, okay, and if you select half day, then other fields will appear like the start hours of when should we start this absence. Okay, so in this case we selected to start at 9 o'clock. Okay, and it's again the same procedure, so scheduling those days, but in this case these days are partial days, okay, and are automatically approved because of the policy. Okay, and this is how you book and unbook days in your absence calendar. Now let's see how we can book days or approve days uh, um, as an absence approver. Okay, to do that we will enter with a different profile. So in this case, the resource manager, which allows us to approve absences. So if you see here, when you enter in the absences, you then go to absences and you see here that you have two resources that require the approval of their absences. So entering in the absences, you then go to the second tab, which shows also an indicator of how many resources need their approvals. Okay, and at this point in time, the approvals can be done in different ways. Different ways, there are essentially three ways that you can use to approve the absences. So the first way is just selecting the information in the table, or selecting everything, or selecting each of them, okay, and based on the analysis that you see here in terms of the vacations that are being requested and the summarization, the summary of the different vacations, so the allowed days, the number of days that are approved, and so on and so forth, then you can take a decision, okay, with just that information, either to approve or to reject everything that you see. So either if you select approval or rejection, you are asked for a comment. Okay, so then inserting that comment will automatically approve those absences. Okay, the same thing with the rejection. This is the first way that you can use to approve or reject the absences. The second way that you can use to approve or reject absences is by seeing each of the individual persons. Okay, so in this case, the Abraham Alvarez, I want to see his calendar, the overall calendar for that resource. So in this case, I just select that precise resource, and then I have a button which allows me to see the entire information of this resource in a yearly view. So I can access the same information as he sees it. So the allowances that he has active for this year, absences per type, per status. So I can see here then the full calendar with all the information. I can easily identify, based on the coloring scheme, the days that I need to take some action on. So I can see all of those days and that I need to take an action on them. I can basically take actions by selecting any of those days. So I'm going to select this day and take an action. So either approve or reject. So I'm going to approve that day. By approving that day, then the fifth, okay, was removed based on the ask for on asking for that removal. Okay, the same thing happens here on the days that are pending approval to be scheduled. Okay, so I can select multiple days or just one day. So I'm going to select in this case multiple. Okay, and based on that, insert eventually a comment and take an action, approve or reject. Okay, so I'm going to approve these 2 days. So I see that I have removed one day and approved 2 days, but I still have 3 days to approve for scheduling of these absences, or one day for unscheduling this type of absence. If I want to filter out the information that I see in the calendar, I can always use these filters on top that allow me to filter based on different criteria. So this is basically the second way for me to approve or reject absences in the solution. The third way that you can use to approve or reject absences is just it's using basically the comparison perspective, okay, of comparing the different resources to each other in a monthly basis. To do that, you can basically select which resources you want to compare. So in this case, these two resources. And then you have here an option to view these resources in comparison. And in this case, this will take me to a screen where I can see each of those resources in comparison to each other and take actions on those days. So I see here that I have a day that is pending approval for Adrian Schutz in the 3rd of January. So there are no days in this case for Abraham Alvarez. I'm going just selecting this day and then hitting approve. Okay, so then it will jump automatically to the next period. So in this case, the next period is February, where I see that Abraham Alvarez already has scheduled days in terms of education and also vacations. And I'm asking as Adrian Schutz vacations for this month. Okay, so I can basically act already on this type of request, or then I can just go to the next month and see the kind of information I have in the next month. So I see here the other information that I have, the information for Abraham Alvarez, which requires these 3 days of approval, and these 5 days for Adrian Schutz. So in this case, I can just approve everything that I see, which basically approves all the information that I currently see in this month, so that I currently see in the screen, or reject all the information, or I can just select independently each of the days that I want to approve or reject and take an action on them. Okay, so this taking an action, it means that I will go to, of course, always the period that is pending approval. Okay, but if I go into March, I see that those days are again approved. So this is the third way on how you can use the functionality of approving absences in a comparison way.